Hi David.
How are you?
Fine, and you?
Tired.
Tired, how come?
Because I'm still jet lagged.
Jet lagged. What time zone
just-
did you come from?
Oh, well, we came from the States, so
Oh.
Central Time in the U.S., so it's...
What
I'm
time is
still-
it for you now?
Oh, God, what would it be? It would be about 8:45 in the morning right now.
And you didn't have any sleep now?
I barely slept.
Barely slept.
Plus a really bumpy bus ride and driver with a heavy foot. And, it's just, I slept for a little bit once we stopped here. That's about it.
Is this the part that makes this life hard?
That's a part in Europe that makes this life hard, yeah. The shows are always great. It's traveling from point A to point B and getting there and dealing with all of the, as we like to say in the business, hurry up and wait. That definitely is the difficult part of it.
Did you miss it when you worked on Device?
I didn't miss the traveling.
No.
I missed the camaraderie. I missed the energy, and I missed the fix of the live experience. That there's nothing like it.
What made you decide? Because you got your child was born in 2013. You released Device. Was it all planned?
The hiatus was planned, yes. What we did during it, none of that was planned. That just kind of came up. We definitely had gotten to a point that we were, I wouldn't say burnt out, but things had gotten very cyclical, very monotonous, very assembly line-like. We needed to take a time to re-energize and do normal human things like, get married and have a baby and, live like a normal human being, not like a gypsy for a little while. It was very necessary because we've all come back with a renewed energy and renewed fire, and we're loving it right now.
Were there any thoughts about maybe quitting? Or
No, never. That was never part of the equation. I know people always like to assume the worst, and when bands say that they're going on hiatus, they often think, they're not coming back or they're breaking up. But we meant what we said. It was just a temporary thing.
And maybe it's sometimes good for bands who break up. Maybe just say, don't break up and take a hiatus.
Well, sometimes, look, being in a band is very much like being in a marriage.
Yeah.
And sometimes a little time away from each other makes you really, gain a new level of appreciation. You miss one another. And we did. There's really nothing like the energy that the four of us have up on stage.
Was that what you missed? The energy that you
Absolutely.
had? And what other parts did you miss?
The crowd. What that whole cyclical symbiotic relationship between the musician and the crowd and the fans and getting that fix there. It is the ultimate addiction. It's about the only thing that could be convincing and powerful enough to pull me away from my wife and kid, believe me. There's nothing like it. There's nothing that compares to it.
Was it always the case for you?
Oh yeah. From the very first time I ever stepped on stage.
So what is that thing? Because with the first time you stepped on stage, I think it wasn't even compared to what you do now.
No. That's why the addiction grows stronger and stronger over time. That first taste of it is wonderful, even though it's a small taste. And the more you have, the more you want.
Can you explain it a bit more? What do you get? What do you give? What?
Energy. Pure energy. When you have thousands of people singing your words, when you're able to make them release and feel powerful and give them, strength, it's an intoxicating thing. It's an amazing thing.
What did you learn from Device that you brought into this Disturbed New?
That there's no place like home. That's what I learned from Device.
Yeah?
That as much fun as I did have with it, and as much of an honor as it was to be able to work with the many incredibly talented musicians that were on that record, and that I shared the stage with. It definitely made me realize how unique and how special my relationship and our ability together as a band with as Disturbed is. You know, Dan is the Joe Perry to my Steven Tyler, and with myself, him, Mike, and John together on stage, there's really, for me, nothing else that compares to it.
When you returned, were there any maybe? Were you afraid that you didn't have a connection anymore? Was it?
No. We knew that right away when we started the writing process again. This was a return to our old habits of actually being in the same room together while we were writing, as opposed to relying on technology, which we had grown to do over the course of moving away from one another and not being in the same city, sending, music files via the internet from point A to point B, and developing that way until we got the songs to a certain point. This time, very, very early on, I kind of hit a bit of a creative brick wall where I could be very, very horribly judgmental of my own work. And I can spit out 100 melodies and not realize that there are 25 of them that are fantastic. And I called Danny and I said, hey, you mind if I come out to Chicago for a couple days and let me improvise this stuff on the fly with you, and let's create as we go, like we used to. This way we can know from each other and gauge each other's reactions. And that's how the entire writing process for this record went. And I can guarantee you we're never going back to relying on technology.
When did the shift happen, actually, when you released?
January of 2014, I want to say, was when Danny first came out to, was it 2014 or 2015? I'm losing track. Anyway, when did the shift going to?
The shift when you start recording. Well, your first album was released in 2000.
Yeah.
When did you?
When did we start relying on technology?
Yeah, slowly not being. Not looking.
After we moved away from one another. When I moved out of Chicago, Mikey moved up to Milwaukee. When we weren't in the same city anymore, it became more and more difficult to just get it done logistically. Yeah. But now we've realized that it's worth taking the flight. And it's worth, spending the time and setting up camp either in Chicago or Danny coming down to Austin or any number of situations, whatever will work, so that the three of us at least can be in the same room together when we're writing.
I've read some earlier interviews, and in one you said that if you would describe, people always ask you to describe your music, and I know it's really hard, but you say, well, we are now maybe more rock than we are metal.
That's only by today's definition.
Oh, yeah.
I still think that if you took us and you put us in a time machine, okay, and you made us travel 20 years back, and if we came out during the era where, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest were, what were considered, and sure, are justifiably still considered metal, then nobody would question in a million years where we belong. But metal, the definition of it has kind of transformed to incorporate a lot more of the aspects of hardcore, metalcore, that type of ultra-aggressive delivery, which we just don't do. So if you compare by today's standards, we don't seem to fall into that categorization by today's standards.
And let's skip the standards. What do you like about this music genre when you grew up and even now? What is it?
The power. The power, the meaning behind many of the lyrics, the depth, the feeling it gave you, the feeling to transcend negativity, to be able to overcome obstacles. The feeling of feeling powerful, feeling strong.
And who did this for you as a child? I mean,
Sabbath, Maiden, Priest, Metallica, Pantera. I could keep going.
Many acts, not one that you say. That
No,
those-
several. Even Kiss back in the early days.
Yeah.